think we're live. Hi everybody, this is Aisha and Dean and Sophie and Alex. We decided to bring the whole family here today because we are going to talk about the most important brain health tips we learned in 2017. And because it involves the family, we thought we were going to bring the whole family to you.
Health always involves the family. The lowest denominator of health is the family. So whatever you do for yourself, you're going to affect everybody else. And that's critical, especially if you have kids, because that's where most of the development takes place.
Absolutely.
So let's end the year with a bang.
So we created a presentation for you guys. And
this took a lot of practice.
It's not going to fall off. Okay, so let's start with tip number 10.
It's a special episode.
Yeah.
So, number 10, all carbs are not bad. And we can't emphasize this more because we hear this on a regular basis in our clinic, from our patients, from our family members. Carbs seems to be the villain of this whole movie that we're living in.
And protein seems to be the hero.
Yeah.
And it's the wrong movie. You're watching the wrong movie. It's a lot of noise that's been introduced into the healthcare system. In the real public health realm, there is no noise. We know what's right and what's wrong. All carbs are not bad.
Yeah.
As Sophie will give you her little experience.
We learned that the hard way through holidays like Thanksgiving and Halloween especially Halloween.
Absolutely.
The difference between simple carbs and complex carbs. Like the simple carbs are what you find in Halloween. Those candies, super sugary, high energy.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. The entire story can be told in this graph. If we had to teach one class about nutrition, it would be in this graph. It's not the carbs, it's the high glycemic and low glycemic index for foods.
It's how the glucose enters your circulation that is the most important thing. So there are certain foods, such as simple carbs, and we'll talk about that increase your glucose levels right away. You just see a spike of glucose in your circulation, in your blood.
And the insulin goes up right away.
Exactly, and the insulin goes up right away. And there is a crash of the blood glucose, just like it actually rises within a few minutes to about an hour. So the goal is to eat foods that have complex carbohydrates, that have a slow rise, like this green line that you can see.
That's my job, the point into the
slow rise.
The roles have changed. Yes.
Of glucose into the circulation, because that sustains energy, that maintains focus, that maintains concentration, that doesn't make you run to the refrigerator or to Subway or to Taco Bell every now and then.
The carb is not the villain. Your body needs carbohydrates. Your body needs sugar. Your brain needs it because it's a form of the most efficient form of energy, not the ketones. Though that's the dark side. What is that? Where the villain is actually acting like the good side.
Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah, this is not the good stuff. So low glycemic versus high glycemic is what you're supposed to focus on. Please study the labels. Learn about what foods are low glycemic and what foods are high glycemic. The difference is significant for your kid's life and for us.
Exactly. Yeah. So what are the complex carbs or the good carbs that we're supposed to have? So whole grains, 100% whole grain bread, for example. Most fruits, some of the fruits have a lot of sugar in them. For example, like pineapple.
Correct.
Or very sweet mangoes. They're very sweet. But most fruits are actually great because the sugar is bound to fiber. We have green vegetables, all kinds of other vegetables as well. Beans, which is one of the most important things that we can eat. Yeah. And we'll talk about that later in that.
The fact that the sugar is bound to the carbs is significant. It makes it a low glycemic food. The sugar is not released rapidly. It doesn't spike up rapidly. So therefore,
it's the energy used over a long period of time.
Over a longer period of time, exactly.
And sweet potatoes and all the tubers that actually have complex carbohydrates or resistant starches. So that was our carbohydrates. Now,
let's see how we pair this.
Okay.
Fantastic. Okay.
That was close.
Then we have the simple carbs. So the simple carbohydrates are the bad carbohydrates, for the lack of a better term. But it's true. Things like white bread, white flour, sugar, cakes, muffins, things that have simple sugar that cause that spike in your blood circulation are not really healthy. It causes a lot of inflammation. It causes glucose dysregulation. It causes inflammation in the brain.
It does.
It really messes up concentration and mood.
Even the amyloid level, the bad protein in Alzheimer's has been shown to be spike up. But some of these things you'll actually, we get pushback. So what about kids? They like candy. They like sweets. Well, we have alternatives. We have hacks. We have food hacks. You want to tell us about some of the cookies that mom make and the cakes that moms make?
Where do we start, really?
Yeah.
I mean, she makes such good food.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It makes me happy.
Her key lime pie,
Exactly.
her cookies, her vegan cookies.
And how does she do that? Where does the healthy part come in?
Well, the healthy part
We
comes...
basically replace those simple carbohydrates like those sugars and flours with complex carbohydrates like grains, flax seeds, that kind of stuff.
Correct.
And we sweeten it with dates, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is the whole fruit powder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We use date sugar, which is essentially the whole date pulverized into a powder. And that creates, it actually serves as a really good binding, not to go into the recipe details, but
Yes, please.
it's delicious. Okay. All right, so let's move on to point number 9. I learned to do it quickly
That was good.
without hurting the family.
Yes.
Number 9, exercise.
Yes. Exercise is critical. I mean,
Yeah.
this is what we talk about all the time. It's probably the biggest stabilizer, equalizer of the body. Exercise affects every aspect. And everybody who comes to me, I exercise. I go in the lawn and I do the lawn and I walk. No, the data shows that it's more strenuous exercise. It has to be continuous. Some data has shown that even if you did half an hour of exercise, but the rest of the time you sat down for 24 and a half hours, it negated the benefit. So it has to be completely part of your existence, and it has to be at times strenuous to get the blood rushing.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and it's not only good for brain, but specifically when it comes to Alzheimer's disease and dementia, exercise can reduce the risk by as much as 50%, depending on what population you're
Correct.
looking at. The numbers are just incredibly high, and it also reduces the risk for cardiovascular disease, for cancer, for all kinds of cancer, whether it's colon cancer, endocrinological cancer.
And most important, the thing that's been found to be most effective for depression and anxiety, more than the pills, was exercise.
Absolutely.
So how do we incorporate that in our life?
Well, what we do to incorporate it is basically in the times that we've been sitting a lot and we feel like, we're not very active, we decide to jump in. We exercise. So we could do like push-ups, sit-ups, an hour at a time. So
Yeah.
we sit for an hour and we're like, we haven't been very active, so let's get to it. And kind of like breaks in between.
Yeah.
Like, when you feel low energy, even if you don't want to exercise, because it won't...
That's what you did last night when
Yeah,
you did
I
the treadmill. Yes, yes.
We've tried to incorporate exercise into our daily life by bringing it inside our homes. Dean and I work long hours, and sometimes we come home very tired, so it's very difficult to have a gym membership and get ready to go to gym. We exercise in our living room, and we have a treadmill in our garage, and it actually works out really well.
Yeah, and more than just convenience, I think it's the most efficient way to bring exercise to your home. It has to be part of your life, part of your living room, your bedroom, your even your kitchen and work. In each of those spaces, create elements and bring tools that will help you exercise on a regular basis. If it's not that, the likelihood of people keeping up to gym memberships, well, we know the data on that. It's dismal. It's not even in single-digit numbers. So bring it into your home and make sure there's something that you can mark. I did this many push-ups today. I did this many, exactly, check it off. And steps or jumping jacks or whatever it is.
And for those who don't regularly exercise, even small incremental changes, like beginning to exercise for 10 minutes actually makes a big difference. There was a paper that recently came out that people who exercise for 10 minutes actually increased their cognitive scores significantly. So anything matters.
Exactly.
All right,
Exactly.
let's move on, guys.
Yes.
Are you ready for this one?
There we
we
go.
go.
Number 8.
Number 8 is mindfulness.
So mindfulness to us, for a lot of people, it seems out of place. What is this? This is this one of those soft things. It's not. It's the purpose behind things. It's being present in the moment, enjoying the moment, being aware. But how do you do that? It's easily said. It's by organizing everything around a vision and a mission. So everything we do in life is around a vision and a mission. So it's not contrived. It's not pointing to a time in the future. Everything I'm doing, if I'm eating, if I'm sitting, if I'm talking, if I'm watching TV, if I'm reading, everything is towards the ultimate vision in our life.
Yeah, mindfulness. It's basically the jet engine of everything we do.
Exactly. Well, that's a good one. Yes.
That's a good one. Jet engine of
Yes.
everything we do. What does it mean to you, Sophie?
Mindfulness for all of us is basically magical. It can help us reflect on our emotions, on our stress, and it can improve our mood overall. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's not just sitting around with your legs folded and arms to the side. Exactly, which is fine. That's great for a lot of people. But it's about that moment of reflecting, calming the muscles down, calming yourself down, maybe using breathing as a method of kind of bringing everything to the center, and then reflecting on the ultimate vision and purpose. That's the focus part. It's an amazing element of life, of daytime, and it's changed your life in many ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
For me, it's about whatever decision I make, whether it's choosing a meal, whether it's exercising or not, what time I go to bed, and my sleeping patterns. It's always doing everything with the end in mind, with the purpose in mind. Why am I doing this? Why am I taking this particular step in my day? It's because I want to get to my goal, and I want to be closer to my vision.
And it becomes a purpose. It becomes a habit that way.
Yes.
Because habits are not magical. That you have to be motivated. There's no such thing as motivation. It's incremental successes toward a goal.
Exactly.
And then you actually juxtapose and bring emotion next to it. That becomes motivation. So in order to create that motivation, you have to create incremental successes towards the goal. That's the mindfulness part.
It's basically being aware of everything around you, being aware of what's surrounding you, and most importantly, being aware of the bigger picture.
Beautiful.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Awesomely put. Okay.
Absolutely. I
So,
think
all right.
Aisha's gotten stuck on number 8 there. Oh, no, we
No,
got it.
we
got it.
aren't
Oh,
stuck.
good.
We're moving on to number 7, which is plants, not pills. This is my attempt at drawing a plant, and the kids were making fun of me
Yeah,
earlier.
because we almost were banned in 37 states because of that drawing, but that's okay.
Plants, people.
Plants, yeah. Get your mind in the right place. So,
Anyway,
yeah.
plants. So, getting your macro and micronutrients from plant foods rather than relying on vitamins and nutrients and nutraceuticals is much better, because the micronutrients and vitamins in plants, fruits and vegetables, whole grains and beans, are in concert with each other. They work in synergy with each other.
Yeah.
Our body actually recognizes them very well, and they can be absorbed. But if you take them in the form of pills, either they don't work, as we know from most of the clinical
Or
trials,
paradoxically,
they
work in the reverse direction. The vitamin E story with prostate cancer. It actually worked in reverse fashion where they saw in food. The same thing with vitamin A. The synergy is important. Now, to us, it's a big deal here, because a lot of these gimmicks out there, a lot of these programs, brain health and other programs, their whole program is based on a concoction. And we've seen people that from west of us, they've come with these bags of pills. Yeah, in this program, in this initiative, they've actually looked at my chemistry, and then depending on my chemistry, they actually gave me 15 pills. By the way, half the pills are the ones that you have to buy from them. There is no such data. These people are creating data where there is none, so they're actually trying to profit. And whenever you see this magical pill pushing, it's all lies. It's criminal for as far as we consider. There are some pills that have shown to be beneficial, usually in deficiency states.
Yes.
If you're a lower B12 level, B12 is important. If you're a vegan, B12 you should take. Omega-3s are fairly good for everybody. That's not as much as we used to think, but they're still beneficial. And turmeric may have some benefits.
Yes.
But in general, most of your vitamins work significantly better when you have a more varied, plant-based, whole food diet.
Absolutely.
It's in that form that you get all of them working together in your body. That's the beauty of it.
Absolutely.
So not
The
plant.
human body is super complex, so don't expect just one chemical to fix it, the whole thing, right?
Yeah. Beautifully stated.
That's it.
Okay. All right. Number 6.
Just started and ended there. Absolutely.
Okay.
Blood pressure.
All right. Blood pressure. We can't really emphasize how important blood pressure management is.
Yes.
And for those of us who are in the trenches and see patients all day long, we know how high blood pressure actually destroys the brain. It destroys the structure of the brain
Yes.
and the vessels that provide oxygen and nutrition to the brain.
This is the more common thing we see and the most undertreated, mismanaged element we've seen. People who have blood pressure, now this year the new measures came that actually lowered the blood pressure, normal blood pressure level.
Yes.
So
To
check your
130 over 80?
125
It's
actually.
120. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
120 over 80,
80.
and lower is normal. Anything above 120 for systolic blood pressure is actually on its way towards becoming hypertension, and anything above 80 is abnormal.
And high blood pressure matters for every system in the body,
Yes.
especially the brain, the most vascular organ in your system, the organ that consumes 25% of your energy. So it's critical to get your blood pressure checked, and if it's abnormal, do daily checks. Don't wait for every 3-month cursory check in the clinic, which means nothing. Take those numbers to your doctor, make sure that they affect it. Now, treating blood pressure has a short-term and long-term way. Short-term, if you have blood pressure, you have to use medication. Long-term, if you want to reverse it, and we've had talks about this,
Yes.
it's lifestyle.
Absolutely.
Blood pressure medicines today do not reverse blood pressure, underlying cause of blood pressure. It's lifestyle that does it. So both of them have to be instituted, and as lifestyle takes over, you can lower the medication level. I actually
Absolutely.
stammered, that must be blood pressure.
Let's check your blood pressure
I know,
right now.
I know.
All right. So that was blood pressure. Number 5, beans and greens.
Beans and greens.
Why are beans on our list today? That's because beans are the cornerstones of blue zone living, where people actually live the longest life and the healthiest life. Tell us about
Yeah.
beans.
Well,
Beans.
beans and greens are really important because, as we know, the healthiest places on Earth have one thing in common, and that's beans and greens.
Yeah.
They both eat.
Absolutely.
They all eat beans and greens more than the average person does. And that's really
Absolutely.
important.
Yeah. They're really good too.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you can make them in so many different ways.
Oh my gosh, yes. So
They're
many different
delicious.
flavors.
They're a great source of clean protein. They're a great source of fiber and complex carbohydrates. And we've actually seen in research projects that when people eat beans, their body regulates the glucose levels throughout the day. So say, for example, if you had a bean burrito for breakfast and you had a donut by accident,
Why are you pointing at me?
no, I'm
I
just
don't have. Yeah.
you had a donut sometime later during the day, the beans you had for breakfast actually keep the sugar from the donut in your gut.
Exactly.
It doesn't let
Second-
it go out into your circulation. It's actually called the second meal effect. And that's the power of beans. I
Have you
know.
ever seen anybody this excited about beans? That's it, beans.
Yes.
But the importance
Bean
of beans,
specialist.
exactly. One of the new books that has come out is a bestseller, of course, because they say things like bacon is back or butter is back, which are all lies. But I say that a lot, but it is. This book has 60 citations that are wrong. And one of the things they say is lectins are poison to you. Well, the food that has the highest lectin, the food that's most often consumed in the healthiest places in the world, and this is well documented, are beans. So, and the argument is, well, maybe it's a pressure cooker. Well, none of those communities for centuries had pressure cookers. So that's not true. Plants are good, and beans are the cornerstones, and greens are the cornerstones.
And especially when you combine them with greens. The greens have special chemicals that they just make your brain thrive. Not only your brain, but the rest of the body.
The antioxidants, anti-inflammatories all come from greens.
Exactly. Are you guys ready for number 4?
You were that excited for number 5. Oh my gosh, what is this?
So number 4, you share your partner's risk. And
you
I
see
think,
what I have? Yeah, I no.
You see what I have to go through now.
No. So
The most important message that this actually gives us is that diseases of the brain are not entirely genetic. You know, when you live with somebody, obviously you don't share, genes, but you share a lot of your lifestyle.
You do.
When you live together, you share the same eating patterns, the same sleeping patterns, the same stress patterons. All of this
Activity
actually affects
level.
you. Activity.
I mean, 600%. That's not genetics. People didn't marry their cousins. Well, hopefully most places. It's environmental shared risk. I mean, we've seen patients that have 40 years, 50 years married together. They're living the same identical lives by
Yes.
then, even 20 years, 10 years.
Absolutely.
So 600%, yeah.
I make her guilty too when I eat too much food.
Exactly. So 600% increased risk speaks to that shared risk factor. that no genetic factor has that kind of number. I mean,
Absolutely.
so we have to understand that the lowest denominator of behavior change and lifestyle change is the family. You want to influence your kids? All the lectures in the planet will not do it. It has to be inculcated into daily life, into everyday activities, and everybody actually sharing those activities and lifestyle factors and habits. And it's only then that you actually see an effect in the family. Everything else has failed unless it's been inculcated or introduced into the entire family.
Absolutely.
Oh, and in our clinic, we always ask, please bring your partner or don't come at all.
Yeah.
Well, we're not that militaristic, but we said, please bring your partner.
But in the brain health workshops,
Yes.
we actually ask the spouse or the partner to be there because habits are actually formed easier when your partner is with you.
Absolutely.
And
Alright.
the entire family too.
Exactly.
Number 3.
I'm really good at this. Brain resilience.
Brain resilience.
At
or-
any age.
Yes, brain resilience or brain protection at any age. A lot of us think that after a certain age, we're not able to have that resilience and that protection, and that it's basically downhill.
Yeah, you can't
Not
teach an
so.
old dog new tricks.
Not so. It's
Yeah.
all about creating connections between cells, and those are under our control. The food we eat, the exercise we do, the amount of stress that we have, or the way we control it, all of these actually make or break these connections between the neurons or brain cells. And we can start that at any age.
You want to tell us a few words about resilience?
Yeah, in fact, not only when you're older, but when you're younger too, especially when you're younger, because at this age, this is when your brain is developing the most, from 1 to 12. Actually, even to age 21.
Yes.
Because your brain is developing. So,
Myelination.
yeah, exactly. So when in this period of time, you want to do the right things for your lifestyle to be able to make your brain resilient for the future when your brain isn't developing as
Correct.
well it is.
So the fastest growth happens in the first few years of life. And then there's actually a programmed cell death where there's dying of the cells. That infrastructure is laid by two things, genetics, but also now we know environment. What happens in the household, the foods you eat, the amount of activity or the type of activity, not just overactivity. Specific person-based activity really determines the ultimate cognitive brain capacity of the person. Now, at any age we were talking about this, we've seen 90-year-olds more cognitively active than any young person we've seen.
Absolutely.
And these people, and the nun study showed this, it's the level of activity that they had that determined the connectivity. Now we have this 3-pound organ, which has about 100 billion neurons, 87 to 100 billion neurons, potentially a quadrillion connections, and 1 times 10 to the 50th processing power. That's better than any computer.
Amazing.
Now that connection is determined by you, by your environment, or what you do with your brain. We use education as a proxy, but it's actually not education. Otherwise, poor Bill Gates and Jobs and all these guys who didn't go to college. It's about how active you've kept your brain all your life. Each neuron out of the 87 billion to 100 billion can make a few connections or as many as 30,000 connections.
Yes.
So the more active you keep your brain, and not necessarily with games like Sudoku and things, it has to be complex, fun games for you. And complex, fun games that challenge you throughout an hour, 2 hours a day, build those connections.
Absolutely.
Those bridges, those fibers that will not be severed by any pathology.
So you said like each neuron can have up to 30,000 connections.
Correct.
So imagine like you have about only 5,000 connections for each neuron. You only have like 100 billion. So that's like a trillion connections in your brain.
He was about to do some crazy math, but that's
No.
good that you did.
Lucky I didn't.
Yeah. So
That's
good.
incredible tonight. That gives me a lot of hope.
That's right.
All right. Number 2, sleep.
Sleep.
We don't really talk about sleep when it comes to brain health, but think about it. You know, when we sleep, 2 very important processes take place. The first one is memory consolidation.
Yes.
So basically, you know, we get a lot of information during the day,
Yes.
and our brain processes that information, creates memories, and puts it in the right place so that we can easily retrieve it later.
It's
Yeah.
like a storage. Like your brain is an organized storage.
Correct.
When you
Exactly.
sleep.
Exactly.
With files and cabinets, you know, so
Correct.
the memory is placed in the right place so that you don't have to work too hard or, you know, work too much to retrieve it. And when we
Correct.
sleep, that happens. As a matter of fact, that's why your scores are better for a test when you sleep well before the test.
Yes.
Basically, imagine like you have a bunch of files on your desktop and you have folders and your files are all over the place. When you're asleep, you're basically putting those files in the correct folders. And
Correct.
That's what it is.
Exactly.
Aisha in one of the talks aged herself and talked about microfiche and how things are organized in that sense. I wasn't alive back then, but it is literally that, putting the files in the right cabinets. And test after test after test for kids, it's shown that the kids that slept an hour more actually got one grade better than the others. Of course, they control for other variables as well. That's significant. So sleep is important for all of us. The
Absolutely.
second function is cleansing.
Yes. So basically, when we sleep, what happens?
Well, it's a lot of people talk about detox this, detox that, but sleep is the number one detox for the brain.
It sure is.
Nobody's talked to you about detox. I think you've heard us talk a lot.
Plagiarism.
Yeah, plagiarism. No, I'm just
So,
kidding.
so there are
I
these
know.
cells in the brain called the glia cells, and you know what they
We
do?
like to call them janitor cells.
Or janitor cells. What they do is when we sleep, they go and they get rid of, you know, the broken parts or the toxic material that I've deposited during the day, and it basically eats it away. And when we don't sleep, that doesn't happen. That's why people tend to have higher amounts of abnormal proteins, like the amyloid beta protein that has been associated with
Yeah.
Alzheimer's disease. It actually goes up in the cerebrospinal fluid after one night of sleep deprivation.
Or inflammatory products. And this year, a research came out that actually showed that those janitor cells, not only do they not clean up things, they start cleaning up the wrong connections. So they start eating away from the good brain. So there was a big article about this, that the brain starts eating itself away when you don't get sleep. That's significant. That's why repeatedly we see patients who haven't gotten sleep, their brain is smaller and shrunken.
Yeah.
Both with stress patients as well as sleep patients. We see the same thing, shrunken brains.
So you can actually see the effects of the brain eating
You
itself.
do. Well, not while it's eating, but you see the long-term
Yeah, the
effects of it,
long-term
the smaller brains, absolutely.
But it's important to discuss this as well,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
too much sleep actually puts you at a higher risk of cognitive impairment as well. So it's just finding that sweet spot of what works for you, and a lot of times implementing sleep hygiene and talking to a specialist if you have sleep disorders.
And 4 hours, 5 hours is not the sweet spot for anybody. I know that there are a lot of talks on Google and everywhere else that people who sleep 3 hours or nobody. It's 6.5 hours to 7.5 hours is the range that we want people to be sleeping.
And
Yes.
more for children.
More for children, of course.
Okay, so no, we have to go for an advertisement break before we reveal the number one spot.
Yeah, I don't think we're at that stage yet.
I'm
so,
joking.
Yeah.
Okay. So number one is planning. Plan.
It is.
You can't really step towards a healthy lifestyle if you have not really planned it out. And
None
planning,
of these matter without planning.
And that's where mindfulness comes in.
Yes.
Because the planning is not something that you do in the morning and that's it. It has to be part of your lifestyle.
Exactly.
Planning is every aspect of your lifestyle. And it's only then, that's why when it comes to diets, 85 to 90% of fail. When it comes to exercise plans, same thing. Because people take it as a New Year resolution. We'll do that. We'll talk about that in another session. It's not a New Year resolution. It's your life. It
Yeah.
has to be part of your life. You have to be mindful of it all the time.
New day resolution.
New Day resolution. Good.
it has to be New Day resolution.
Yes.
Yeah.
So planning also takes into consideration your strengths and your weaknesses of where you are in life and how much can you actually contribute to that bigger picture. And it's important to create successes, because successes create habits. Literally, when you have micro successes because of certain, things that you do on a regular basis, there are pathways in the basal ganglia of the brain that are formed.
The habit pathways.
They're the habit pathways.
Correct.
So making sure that you succeed in every step is important.
Correct. So small successes that are driven by vision.
Yes. Well, planning is everything if you're good at it. Planning comes to everything, whether you're basically a billionaire trying to create a company or you're just an average person trying to get through your day.
Correct.
And planning involves
Starts with
a
vision.
It starts with a vision. Vision is really important, and
It's basically what encompasses everything you're doing
Correct.
with vision.
Correct. And then you break it down into small little goals that are achievable and are along your vision.
Yeah.
That actually becomes self-motivating. There is no, I said it earlier, there's no motivation. It's when those goals that you created from that vision that you want to achieve, that you see each of them falling one at a time, and you're marking them in a time-bound way. That creates a pattern of motivation that's unsurmountable. By that is actually success. That's actually happiness. That's joy. That's presence. That's mindful living, and ultimately, that's the one health plan that works.
Absolutely. I think, and with that, we will end it. You just said it beautifully. Thank you so much for joining us. We wish you all a happy new year. I hope you're all with your loved ones having a great time. We will join you
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks with another session, New Year, New You kind of a plan. We'll create a program for you, and we'll talk again. Because all 4 of us were sitting here, I'm sorry we couldn't really interact with the questions that you have or the comments that you have, but I promise you I'll get to all of you guys in time. Thank you so much again for joining us, and keep in touch. If there's anything that you want us to answer, or if you have any questions, or if you want us to speak about a topic, let us know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.